Good evening. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, it has taken some time, but Barbados has been able to resolve the Clicquot issue. This from Prime Minister Fendel Stewart, who says this is one of the administration's achievements over the last 10 years. Mr. Stewart was one of the speakers at a meeting in St. George South in support of Dr. Esther Bayasuku, who is carrying the party's banner in that constituency. Prime Minister Fendel Stewart says government has had to endure some tough times over the Clicquot issue, but it was determined to find a solution that would satisfy all involved. He says the Privy Council told Trinidadian policyholders the government there could not afford to refund their investment, and his administration determined this would not happen to Barbadians despite the length of time it would take or how much it would cost to find a resolution.
We came to a solution with which the investors are comfortable, with which the policyholders are comfortable, and with which the government is comfortable. All of that, in spite of the fact that we were having to deal with other issues related to the economic circumstances in Barbados. We didn't create any Clicquot problem, but we had to deal with it. And we have dealt with it to the satisfaction of all the stakeholders. Took a little time, but what does not take time?
Regarding the South Coast sewage problem, Mr. Stewart says government has been working around the clock to deal with the issue since it started. In fact, he says in one instance, they spent just over $4 million on a piece of equipment that was expected to provide some relief.
We personally intervened with the consultants at the Inter-American Development Bank in their water and sanitation section. They came down to Barbados in December, around the week beginning the 11th or that week, and they did some testings and so on, some dye testing, and looked at the system. There were consultants out of Trinidad, and as recently as last Wednesday morning, I was put in possession of a preliminary set of indications from the people at the Inter-American Development Bank.
The Prime Minister also had this to say to party faithful about the now highly anticipated general election.
You do not know the day or the hour. Get on the ground and start working.
And that vote is constitutionally due no later than this June. Well, as you just heard from the Prime Minister, significant effort is being made to resolve the sewage problem on the South Coast. And joining us live now from the headquarters of the Barbados Water Authority is the General Manager, Keith Roy Halliday. Mr. Halliday, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, good night.
Good night. So, Mr. Halliday, first of all, tell us now where is the BWA in terms of solving the sewage problem. We've been hearing a lot about mitigation measures that have been put in place. So where are you now as we speak?
Well, Lisa, those measures are still being pretty much pursued. That is the mitigation measures, really in an effort just to contain the overflows, to cease or to stop or to retard the overflows onto the street. Because there's been a worsening of the fractures that we've seen in the sewer lines, we really accelerated the next steps, which were really in our medium-term plans. Chiefly what we're looking at doing is creating or constructing some deep injection wells in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and the EPD. We have to make sure that in constructing those, that those are within the approval, if you want to call it, the regimes are set out or the standards are set out by EPD and MOH. Or Ministry of Health, I'm sorry. What that would essentially do for us is to give us an alternative for managing or diverting the effluent so that we can keep the sewage from overflowing in the first instance. And then secondly, to give us the ability or the room with which we can continue, as first indicated some weeks back, to repair the effluent line or to examine the effluent line, or alternately, as now seems to be the case, to construct a permanent bypass for the effluent line. As well, it will allow us the opportunity to further examine the blockage while we seek to either repair or to create a permanent inflow line. In all likelihood, we'll have to go with a permanent inflow line because we've recognized that there are a number of fractures in that particular area. We have groundwater intrusion, and therefore the likelihood of carrying out a repair wouldn't be as easy as we had initially hoped.
On our screen, I'm sure you're not able to see it, but just now we were showing video of some of the work that's been being done to divert the sewage to the Bridgetown system. How has that been holding?
Yes, that has been holding up reasonably well. The Bay Street lift station, as you know, was reactivated, and that was to take some of the strain off of the South Coast storage plant, that particular collection system, and really to provide relief so that we would not have the degree of sewage flowing through those lines. The Bridgetown treatment plant, as you know, has its own challenges. It has some age. It is in need of some upgrade and some repair, so we're constantly monitoring that. The River Road lift station, which is essential as a collection point for the sewage, we are also managing that or checking on that at least twice daily, clearing the various grills or the filters. With respect to the Bridgetown sewage plant, there are essentially two large tankers that we typically use. Tanker number 2 is currently in operation. Tanker number 1, we're completing the dislodging of that, so we'll have that extra capacity as well. And that's really just to safeguard the measures that we put in place.
Now, we want to move on to water quality. We know that that is a major issue that's being discussed right now in light of the alert issued by the U.S. Embassy here in Barbados.
Yes.
We've established that the water in Barbados water is safe, but how do we know that this is so?
Oh, there can be no question about it, Lisa. We do at least 50 samples weekly. We've been doing that for the last millennium almost. And in addition to that, the EPD, in conjunction with the Ministry of Health, over the last month conducted independently at least another 100 samples. So if you were to look at the number of samples that we would have done, sample testing rather, that we would have done, in addition to what the Ministry of Health in conjunction with the EPD would have done, that's at least 300 samples we would have done over the last while. Recognize that the World Health Organization standard for which we're guided by, or the guidelines rather, on which we operate, only calls for about 8 samples being done weekly. But out of an abundance of caution, because we can really boast of a high quality of water, we have been maintaining this level of sampling test for quite some time. It is a regime and is a protocol that is followed explicitly. That is not something that we have ever compromised or will continue or will ever compromise. Whenever we have issues of concern, there is a particular process that we follow. You have to test at the well source, you have to test in the distribution system, and sometimes we test at the point of entry, and then you can test on property. Doing a test on property is not by itself conclusive. You do not know what is on that property, whether you have tanks that can contain bacteria, whether you have intrusion in your plumbing system, whether you have other contaminants, pathogens, or bacteria that are resident in your house. And therefore, what I'm saying is that we can be reasonably assured of our potable water quality in as much as we have been doing this sampling testing on a weekly basis. And for instance, the sampling that we've done, even in the area where the residents reside, that the U.S. Embassy have indicated they have had elevated levels of bacteria, those samples from our end have proven to be quite safe. So that is why I can easily stand here and say that all potable water is certainly safe. And I can say that with a certain level of assurity.
And this is backed up by the World Health Organization and PAHO as well, as far as you know?
We are looking rather to see whether or not PAHO and the World Health Organization will comment independently, but based on what we have provided so far, we have had no difficulty or differences in terms of opinion, I believe, in terms of our processes and certainly in terms of the way in which we've been testing. For instance, when we test water, there's a particular regime of protocol we follow. If you're using a simple tap, you run that tap for a little while to make sure that the stagnant water, if at all any, runs off. Then you have to sanitize it. You either do it by direct flame, chlorine, or alcohol. And then you use a sterilized bottle and you put that water into the sterilized bottle, which contains sodium thiosulfate. That really is to make sure that you kill any chlorine that's in the water so that the bacteria that is there will be evident, can be analyzed. After that, you transport that in chill containers to the lab, and based on the analysis that is done, we are immediately informed if the result happens to be negative. We have only ever had a few failures. We're not going to say here that we don't, but in every instance on resampling or retesting, we have never had a failure rate past that. So we're reasonably comfortable that our water supply is more than adequate and that the quality is where it should be.
Roy Halliday, thank you very much, the General Manager of the Barbados Water Authority, joining us live from the BWA's headquarters just next door in the Pine. Thank you very much, Mr. Halliday.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay.
Well, in more news from the authority is officially on the way to putting a number of renewable energy initiatives in place. The company has signed an agreement with the United Arab Emirates, which will see $3.5 million allotted to a renewable energy project for the authority. The project engineer, Nathan Hart, says a number of photovoltaic projects, which will reduce its energy bill and increase operational efficiency, are in the works. These include a solar car park in Fontebelle.
Probably is going to be the largest solar PV carport in Barbados, 350 kilowatts of space area being taken up. Then on top of that, as we highlighted again also in Bomiston area, there will be a 500 kilowatt ground mount system that will be tied into the Bomiston pumping station. We are moving towards climate resilience. What we mean by that is that, one, we are trying to lower the energy cost for the Barbados Water Authority. Our energy cost currently stands per month is close to $2 million Barbadian dollars per month.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the BWA, Dr. Atlee Brathwaite, says the multi-million-dollar grant will be of tremendous value to the BWA and to Barbados as a whole.
I want to mention the financing of this project is by way of grant funds, which at this stage in our economic situation we welcome. And I'm certainly very happy, and I'm certain the General Manager and the head of the project unit will say that we are happy to have you, and we are also impressed by your cooperation.
Coming up after the break, big plans for Barbados to be the heart of trade in cultural industries for the Caribbean. Stay with us and you'll hear more. Plans are being formulated to make Barbados the hub for cultural industries trade events in the Caribbean. This from Director of the Cultural Industries Development Authority, Andrea King. She says it's one of the major outcomes of last year's CariFesta 13. Director of the Cultural Industries Development Authority, Andrea King, says while every major city in the world has trade events and fairs, no such thing exists in the Caribbean for culture. But that's about to change, as high-level talks have already taken place.
We would have discussed at the CariFesta, CariCom level, where the trade event will remain a feature of CariFesta. So every 2 years, we expect that will happen somewhere in the Caribbean. But then in the gap years, Barbados will be the home of that creative sector trade event, so that the international buyers get to understand that every year, looking for cultural products from the region, Barbados is a place to be.
Ms. King tells CBC News local artists made a number of business links through CariFesta 13 last year, but CIDA still has to do the research to see exactly how viable the 10-day exposition was for the artistic community.
I do know that there were two music acts that definitely got interest, and then the two visual artists would have made sales. 4 would have participated in our exhibition Prism in Miami, and that was last year. So when we do our research to evaluate the outcome, especially from a financial perspective, yeah, that's a report that we're still in the process of doing.
The CIDA head adds that the authority is planning a similar exposition, but on a smaller scale, and that's scheduled for November.
If we don't export our products, you know, the Barbados market is miniature, you know, but the global market is huge. And so the reason we're reaching out to international buyers and getting them to understand that, hey, Barbadians have cultural products that you need, come and buy them. That event in November will take care of that.
She says international buyers will be the main attraction of the Barbados Trade Show later this year. A road which residents say has been in dire need of repairs for decades is finally receiving some much-needed attention. But while residents of the St. Michael community are happy that work has begun, They're also appealing for help for others in neighboring communities.
Residents say this road is regularly used by motorists hoping to avoid traffic on the nearby Mylords Hill. They are hoping that improvements to the area known as Breakneck Hill will lead to a reduction in the number of vehicular accidents which occur here.
I've been living in this area for over 40. Now, I was born and raised in this area. And I'm so glad to see that a part of this road get complete, because this road had nothing but holes, and driving going down this road, if any of you all is drivers, you know about how ABS brakes operate. So when the road wet and it go on water, sometimes you don't see the holes. So when you brake and you hitting the hole and the ABS hitting, the cars won't go right down the hill. And sometimes you know how many accidents that's happen down this hill.
When the CBC team visited, workmen were busy preparing a section of the road for repaving. One woman who spoke off camera says she is glad residents are finally getting some relief. She is, however, hoping that the entire road would be repaired and not just the area at the bottom of the hill.
I'll tell you honest truth, you can't come outside and get to any road, and the potholes, even if you using this, sometimes you get him wet on the potholes. So I think it is very good. But it needs to be done further up, that's the honest truth, because the potholes up there, so you can plant potatoes and things you want further there.
At her suggestion, our team visited nearby First Avenue, the Ivy, where this massive pothole was observed. Marcia Fergus, who operates a shop from her home, says in addition to being a breeding ground for mosquitoes, it was having a negative impact on business.
It's slowing it down because the children coming through the gap. So when the water's there, business can be slow.
DLP candidate for the area, Nicholas Aline, confirmed that surrounding roads have also been earmarked for repairs.
In April last year, we did a walkthrough with the Minister of Transport and Works, and this is one of the roads that we would have identified. There are many other roads that we would have identified as well, and we hope that we'll be able then to have some action on those roads shortly.
According to Mr. Aline, better lighting has also been identified as a necessity for this corner, which is just a stone's throw away from Breakneck Hill, and often the scene of vehicular accidents. Lisa Lord, CBC News.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, despite the harsh economic climate and loads of public skepticism, one charity is pressing ahead with its mandate to assist the vulnerable and the disadvantaged in the community. The Handy Helpers for the Disadvantaged made donations worth over $800 to 2 senior citizens' homes recently. CEO Keisha Hoyt says it's been an uphill task to raise the funds at times.
I got some people out there that are doing wrong, and I got some people that are doing right. So some people feel that we is fraud still, and some to let the public know we is not fraud. So we are trying to help other people, not to help ourselves.
The Good Citizens Care of the Elderly and Love and Care Senior Citizens Homes are the charity's latest beneficiaries. Their representatives are pleased with the gesture.
I'm very happy for the donation. Wherever help can be given, we appreciate it, because, you know, some of the old people, yes, they're there, and some of them are just there on their pension. So anything that can be given to aid them and helping is well received and well accepted. Times are hard, economic times are challenging, so wherever help is given, we appreciate it to the fullest extent.
It means a great lot to us, the donation, whatever it may be, to the home, in terms of helping the residents, those who are not ambulant, to be able to help them get around. And we always have a lot of residents who are not able to move on their own. So this donation will really assist us in helping the residents.
Still to come, we'll take a look at some of the stories making headlines across the Caribbean. In Guyana, retrenched sugar workers are getting their money. They're all expected to be paid out over the next 3 days.
The checks have been cut and they are being signed. The wait is over for more than 4,000 sugar workers who were made redundant at the end of 2017. It's time for the severance payout. Business Minister Dominic Gaskin, who joined a number of other government ministers on Friday at Enmore, said it is painful that the situation had to reach this stage because of bad management of the sugar industry in the past.
We have made it clear that monies will be paid before the end of, or by the end of January, and the disbursements will start on Monday. And therefore, so between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the monies earmarked for severance will be paid out.
The workers were assured that their laying off from Gaisuco is not the end of the road for them. Telecommunications Minister Cathy Hughes said several international firms that are interested in their expertise have expressed interest in investing in Guyana.
Don't let anybody tell you that there are no opportunities after today. You would have read in the newspapers just last week or week before about DDL saying they're interested. Everybody saw that in the papers. We still got to produce sugar for DDL, for the molasses. Workers will be needed for that. Then I don't know if the word might not be filtering down, but there are several international companies that have already indicated to the SPU that, hey, we interested in Guyana.
Meanwhile, Minister within the Ministry of Natural Resources, Simone Brooms, assured the workers that the coalition administration would never oversee a situation in which sugar workers could become beggars and paupers.
The government of Taiwan is helping St. Lucia to launch island-wide internet access. Known as Government Island-Wide Network, the project hopes to develop a wireless local area network in public areas, providing residents and visitors with free or low-cost internet access. It was officially launched on January 24th.
The governments of St. Lucia and Taiwan are partnering on the Government Island-Wide Network, or GINET, project, which hopes to enable access to information for residents and visitors. The project costs $4 million. Taiwan is donating $3.8 million to the project, with the government of St. Lucia contributing the remaining $720,000. It is one project under the Information and Communications Technology Cooperation Agreement between the two countries. The GINET installation phase was launched on January 24th.
This project was commenced in year 2015 with the budget of $4 million and aiming to enhance internet penetration rate in St. Lucia by developing wireless network system. 63 Wi-Fi hotspots will be installed in 33 locations in 5 districts, where are Castries, Dennery, Micoud, Vieux-Fort, and the Canaries.
Prime Minister Alan Chasney says residents will benefit from the project. He says it will also help to improve access to the internet and bridge the urban-rural digital divide.
The 2010 population of housing census indicated that internet penetration was only 43% of persons having access residing in Castries and Gros-Islet. This raised questions related to the digital divide, which existed and placed some communities at a great disadvantage. In this era where internet access is becoming more essential to our survival. With the support of the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, the GNet project has been initiated as a response to this situation.
We'll check out the latest in the world of sports just after this break. But before we get to that, here is a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Marijuana can be addictive. While not everyone who uses the drug becomes addicted, some persons do develop signs of dependence. This tip is brought to you in association with the National Council on Substance Abuse, promoting drug awareness.